Hey everybody, it's Owen here with Seek Outside. Today I want to go over how to seam seal some of our bigger tents. Do it at home, do it in your own yard. So let's go ahead and get to that. So today we're going to be seam sealing an 8-person teepee. All you're going to need for this is a little bit of string, something like our Atwood, a carabiner of some sort, some stakes, and your seam sealer yourself. This is a great way to save some money and just save yourself some time on getting your tent. So let's go ahead and get to it. Step one, we're going to go ahead and take some string. We're going to tie up roughly 6-7 feet up high. So this is about as far as I can reach. Do that for yourself. Just get a good mounting point for that teepee. So just tie a knot up here, and you can do this with anything. It doesn't have to be a tree. Anything that's kind of floating up in the air high enough to kind of put your teepee on. So I'm gonna do that. Come up here. Just make sure everything is good. Not that this is any kind of perfect knot, but we're just gonna get it as well as we can, like that. And then I'm gonna hook this carabiner up here, and we should have a little mounting system for our teepee. Now we're going to take our teepee right here, like I said, this is our 8-man teepee, and we're going to go ahead and find the top of it. We're going to pull this all out, and voila, we found the top. As you can see, there's a little loop up here. We're going to hook this into our carabiner, and that's what we're going to hang this tent from. Attaching it up in here, getting that loop on so that we can get to seam sealing it. Now we have good access, and we can go out and stake this thing out. All right, when staking your shelter out, like your bigger teepee or red cliff, something like that, go ahead and find the door. So we found the door right here. We're gonna just take this out, grab a stake. We're gonna come out. We're gonna stake that into the ground like this. And make sure it's fairly tight. And then we're gonna grab our other stake, and we're going to take the seam over. So you can see we have our seam right here. I'm going to bring this, I'm going to bring it down pretty tight, stake that into the ground. Once you've got your teepee set up, we can go ahead and start seam sealing the tent. All of our tents come with some seam grip plus Sill made by Gear. So it's a silicone tent sealant. Having some kind of brush is a really good idea too. Now that we have our seam here out in the open, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run a nice little line down here, down the seam. Start off going nice and easy, not applying a whole lot because you don't want to put too much on, you don't want to put too little. So I'm going to run this bead down. All right. And when you're first starting, if you haven't had any experience with this, go ahead and do it nice and slowly. And I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to push that up and just apply that to the seam. I want it over both black stitching marks. And that's going to completely seal your tent off from getting any moisture inside of it during a rain. We're going to do this for the entire seam. Now you're going to notice a few things on the seams. We're going to have something like this. This is a door tie back. What you want to do is you want to get a little bit of seam sealer on your brush, come here, and you want to just pick this up and put a little underneath it right there. Doesn't have to be a lot, like I said. Start off small and just follow yourself down this seam, and then I'll show you how to do the hood and the guy out points and a little bit of other stuff, so that'll be helpful. I want to talk about seam sealing the cone. This can be a point of leakage as well. Basically there's some black stitching that you're going to see here. It's hard when it's not fully set up, but there's some black stitching, there's our label, some stitches that go up around the stove jack and everything. You just want to cover that whole bit right there. You don't want to go too heavy with the seam sealer, as that can cause some dripping and it's just not aesthetically amazing. So we'll just run this around here and just make sure we get a nice coating on everything. Take your time as always. And yeah, then your cone will be seam sealed. I would like to go ahead and now talk about doing the stove jack. Most stove jacks have the same kind of setup. So what you're gonna notice, you're gonna come out here, you're gonna finish a few seams, and you're gonna come to a stove jack on one side of the tent generally. So there's a few key spots we want to hit. Stove jack is a area for a lot of potential leakage as there's a lot of stitching. We want to hit on top right here with our seam sealer. So let's go ahead and do that. We just want to cover that as part of the cone. And then we want to do 2 laps because this is gonna two laps around this because this is going to soak in. We're gonna go ahead and pull this out. We're gonna just run our seam sealer around this black outer edging here. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and fill that in. Now once we've filled it in, or kind of like brush this stuff in here, we're gonna want to let it sit for a couple minutes, let all this stuff soak in and come through again. So let's go ahead and just kind of do this seam real quick and we'll let this soak in. An important piece to seam seal is these guy out triangles. You don't need to go ahead and do the stakeout loops, which look similar. You need just these as they're a little bit higher up on the tent and can offer some leakage. So what I go ahead and do is you put down some seam sealer, making sure to get just a little bit on the sill itself, so that sill nylon, the actual fabric of the tent. And you're gonna wanna get it on both that seam and the sill right there to create your best seal, so no water gets caught up there. Just like that. Make sure you get on this little bar tack right here. And then that's basically it. You're gonna wanna take just a little more, lift this right here, and you're gonna just push up some seam seal right there, and then just continue on with your seam up as well as down, and then this is gonna be seam sealed, so you won't have any leakage issues right there. Now that we've finished our first seam, here's how we're gonna go ahead and start doing all the other seams. So what I like to do is I like to drop the door. We bring the door out to give tension and make it easier to seal. So I'm gonna pull this stake out of the ground and drop that door, and I'm gonna replace this seam, being very cautious in the process so I don't get it on any of the rest of the tent. I'm gonna pull this stake out. I'm gonna bring this seam over to where the door was, stake it out, remember decent tension, and then we're gonna go ahead and bring out our next seam that we're gonna do. And again, just being super cautious not to get the wet seam on the tent itself. Now that you've gotten 2 seams done, there's 2 ways to go about this. So if you're a little limited on space, you can go ahead and set this one that was just done back by pulling it out, bring it in, making sure it's tight, making sure if a little wind comes, it's not gonna touch the other parts of the tent. Stake that out, grab your other stake, and go ahead and pull out your next seam. Just like that, and that'll save you a little bit of room. Or you can just go ahead and leave that one where it was and just go ahead and bring this out, whatever you have more room for. The safest way is gonna be just having the most tension in this panel so that nothing is getting on anything else. Now that I finished one side of this 8-man, the 8-man happens to have 4 seams, so we got all of those done. Now I have to go ahead and watch it dry. Super entertaining process. If you have a little bit of a breeze or you're worried about your wet seams getting hooked up on anything, go ahead and take the seam over, which is generally the door in most cases, and just go ahead and stake that out as well, just so nothing can blow on each other. And now just let it dry. Best days to do this on are warmer days, not windy and everything, and just having enough time to let these dry. It can take hour and a half in some decent weather. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and switch this around here in a moment. So it's now the morning, so we went ahead and packed this up last night, and then we flipped it back over this morning when we put it out here. So we're gonna go ahead and finish this tent up, and then we'll have a fully seam sealed 8-man. So I just finished this thing up. I'm gonna let it dry. Just make sure it's not tacky when you're letting that thing dry, and then other than that, you've seam sealed your teepee. If you've taken all these steps, the thing should be waterproof as can be. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you guys have learned something informational. If you want to see a video on seam sealing smaller tents, go ahead and click up here. Other than that, you guys have a great day. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Bye.